Hello, and welcome to the Cosmic Healing Podcast. This is Vaughn, and we have a very special episode this week because we've got Dana Whitby with us. Our precious darling Dana Whitby that does our monthly energy report. Well, she has just gotten back from a spiritual pilgrimage through the sacred sites of Mary Magdalene, all through southern France, and we've all been waiting to hear about this experience and how it has impacted her and just all the juiciness. So, hello, Dana. So excited for us to be having this conversation.
Hi, Vaughn. I'm so excited too. It's funny because before we hopped on this call, I almost got out my deck, like to do our monthly energy report. And then I was like, wait, I don't need that this time.
That is funny. No, this is all you, baby.
Not this time around. This is
That's
different.
right. Well, we are so excited, and I love it because it feels like and it was just 2 weeks ago, we were doing the May energy report, and we're like, can we do a podcast about it? And then here we are, poof, literally 2 weeks later, and we're having this conversation. So, like, what is time? What is reality? How have you changed in the past 2 weeks since the beginning of May?
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like I'm going to be integrating this trip for a long time to come, honestly. But I just feel, how do I even put it into words? I just feel so much more connected to the feminine, like receiving energy. That's really like what is so deeply coded into that area of the world. And I think like all you have to do is just go there to, well, it's everywhere too. Like it's not feminine energy just isn't in the south of France, but um like you just got to go there. That's it. And it just is encoded into you.
Oh,
So,
I totally, these sacred sites are so important. And, cause I went to Egypt last year and it changed me. Like, it's something about the land and like the just absorbing the energy. Like, it's like in the land.
yeah.
The energies are in the land. And it's like, it just like oozes up through you and just like encodes and remembers, helps you remember ancient memories that are within our bodies. And so that's why these experiences are so important. And your journey is so on my list. Like, I know it'll all happen in divine timing, but I would love for you to share, number one, like exactly what drew you to that, because I know it's been calling your name for many, many, many years. So just tell us about that, and then just how you got there, like the journey of getting there.
Yeah, okay, that sounds great. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like as a child, I was always like really connected, to Jesus. And I always felt like, even as a kid, that there was like something missing from the story. Like I just felt intuitively like this is not all that there is. I just wondered what else was out there. And I went to church as a kid. I mean, my family was not super religious. We went, like mostly regularly here and there. But I was also raised pretty spiritual. I mean, my maternal line, like they were always open to meditation. My grandmother taught me how to meditate when I was a kid. So I've always had this like religious, but also spiritual understanding that like multiple things can be true all together at the same time. And when I had like, I feel like we have so many different spiritual awakenings, but when I had an awakening in 2015, I was told that I had these spiritual gifts that I wasn't using, and that was what was causing my anxiety and my depression. And I, at the time, felt like, okay, my gifts must be blocked because I don't know what they are. And so I thought maybe I need to do a past life regression to like, clear a block out to figure out what my spiritual gifts are. And I did this past life regression, which I've shared about like at Vaughn's retreats, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast here before. I'm not going to go deep into it, but essentially, like my very first past life regression, I went back to a past life where I was a Jewish priest in Jerusalem, and I was like disillusioned by religion and I was going to go kill myself in the forest, like just starve myself, actually in the desert, I mean. And this angel appeared to me and turned me around, and I saw Jesus preaching. And in that moment where I saw him preaching, he had the women and children in the front of the group and the men in the back, which somehow I knew, like in this regression, the cultural norms of the time, that that would not have been what was going on to prioritize women in the front. Um, and so that kind of piqued my interest. Like, okay, I had this past life where I was a follower of Jesus. I don't know that I was like a disciple, but I was definitely a follower, or an apostle, I mean. I think I was a follower of some kind. Um, and so I just, it was like this interest in Jesus. Like, okay, so I continued doing that. Obviously, I, like a lot of people, watched the Da Vinci Code back in the early 2000s before this spiritual awakening in past life, So that was also interesting to me, that like there could be this bloodline, there could be this alternate timeline of Jesus's life, that, he could have been married to Mary Magdalene, or at least, had a relationship and potentially children. So I started just like uncovering all these things of like what happened in Jesus's life, like who was he, and what else could be possibly true about him, and how does that change how we feel about Christianity, or the message that it actually sends to us. And then in 2019, Megan Watterson wrote the book Mary Magdalene Revealed, which I know a lot of you listening to this podcast have listened to or read. Um, and that was another thing that cracked me wide open. It was like Mary Magdalene has a gospel. Like she actually had her own stuff to say. And not only that, but she was the apostle to the apostles. Like she wasn't just his partner who had his baby, but she was part of this whole spiritual movement, right? Alongside Christ. She was actually his feminine counterpart. I mean, it just like it's been this like unearthing. I think for me and for a lot of us, I'm sure a lot of you listening felt the same, that like we've discovered these little like things along the way, and it's like putting together these puzzle pieces, and we don't fully know what's true. We're never going to fully know the truth. But I think what I learned on this trip too, and we'll get more into this, is like the mystery of it all is actually what's really magical about this. And that's something I learned on this trip, and I'll explain more as we go. But yeah, so in 2019, when I read that book, I was like, I need to go to the south of France. Like this place is calling me. I didn't know. Uh, this sounds such like a weird thing to say, but part of me was like, why France? Like, why is she in France? Like, why does France get Mary Magdalene? Like, what's so great about France? I've never felt called to France. Like, never have had a desire to go to Paris. Like, I've just never felt called to it. So, I don't know if that was maybe my soul like resisting it, or maybe holding out for the right time, but um yeah. So my friend Lindsay and I read that book in 2019 together, and we were both like, we need to go there together someday. And that was 2019, and then COVID hit, and I had a lot of other trips that I had planned that got canceled, and it just never, it just wasn't feeling like the right time or the right place. And then my friend Lindsay, just in September of 2025, so just over 6 months ago, she went there. She was going as a participant in a retreat that no one ended up signing up for except for her. So it ended up being this one-on-one retreat with her and her friend who was the leader. Um, and she really felt activated by the feminine energies. And I was so inspired by hearing her tell me about it when she got home in September, that I was like, can we go? Like, so in January, we booked our flights to go this May of 2026. And I looked at my calendar, and it was just like, the best time to go was while my kids were still in school, so my husband wouldn't have to deal with like entertaining them all day in the summer. I also, honestly, I really just wanted to go over my birthday, which is May 7th. I was like, I just want to like, this is what I kind of want to do for my birthday. It's not a milestone birthday or anything. I turned 42, but it was just like, I just want to be there for my birthday. Um, And so it just felt like it was the right time. So we booked our flights. The flights were actually really cheap, I think, for flying to Europe. It was like $780 round trip. And I was like, how could we say no to that? Like, you can't even fly some places in the US for that price, you know? Like, it just felt like a no-brainer. So we booked it and then we started looking at Airbnbs. And the fact that Lindsay had this knowledge of the trip, like we booked two out of the three Airbnbs that she had already stayed in. So she knew the people who ran them. She knew it was safe and, great locations. We scouted out like one additional one that looked really beautiful in a certain location. And she came up with the entire itinerary and she actually rearranged it from what her experience was. She put it in order chronologically of Mary Magdalene's time in France, um, which obviously I don't know any different because that's what I experienced, but she had a different experience anyway, so it was just interesting that she rearranged it this way and it was beautiful. And a couple weeks out of the trip, she started having some really intense things happen in her life. She was diagnosed with a vestibular disorder, making her feel like dizzy, and unable to drive. So she was like, "Hey, I think when we're in France, you're going to have to be the one to drive." She was planning on doing it since she had been there before. And she was like, "I think you're going to have to do it." And I was like, "Okay, I can do this." I've never driven in another country, but I was like, "I'll be fine." And then the anxiety started creeping in. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be fine. I don't know if I can drive on those tiny roads. And France, if you don't know, drives on the same side of the road as we do and the same side in the car. So I at least had that. But, the signs are in another language. They have just different symbols for one thing. And if you've ever been to Europe, you know the roads are teensy tiny. And we were going into the Pyrenees Mountains with some drop-offs and, some scary stuff. So I was starting to really get in my head about driving. I can't lie. I didn't tell Lindsay that because I didn't want to make her feel bad, but I was like spiraling a little. Like I don't want to do that. Um, and then a little after that, unfortunately, Lindsay's father was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of brain cancer. And so she had to fly up to Boston to go see him. And that flight really aggravated her vestibular disorder that she was diagnosed with. And so she called me literally 2 weeks out from the trip, and I had a feeling that this was coming. And she was like, I just I can't do this. Like, I cannot do two flights. I can't do the long flights. I can't be away from my husband while his father has been diagnosed with it. I just can't do any. This is just not the right thing. Um, and I have never felt so much peace and like surety about something wash over me in a moment like that. I completely understood. I was not upset with her at all. I knew I was still going to go. Like there was something deep in me that was like, this is still happening. There is a way. And when we hung up the phone, my first thought was like, I could do this myself. Like I'm driving anyway. She has vetted these Airbnbs. Like maybe this is a solo pilgrimage, for me to like really do this on my own. And then the more that I thought about that, the more I was like, "Ugh, I don't know. Like if anything goes wrong, I don't know that I really want to be in another country by myself." And the first people to pop into my head were my younger brother and his longtime girlfriend. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna ask them, like, what if they could do it? So I sent them a text and a group text, and I was like, please do not be alarmed. Everything is fine. This is not an emergency, but I do need one of you to call me like as soon as you can. And his girlfriend called me immediately and she was like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And I was like, everything's fine. Do either of you want to go to France with me in 2 weeks from today? And she was like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. She said, unfortunately, I have my finals for grad school that week. I gave her the dates. She was like, I couldn't make it work, but let's look at your brother's work schedule. My brother is a videographer and he makes his own schedule. And so she was like, let's pull it up and see. He was in a meeting, so I couldn't talk to him right then. And she like gasped on the other end of the line. She was like, he has the exact dates of your trip open. He has no filming gigs like those exact days. And I was like, oh my God, maybe he could, maybe he could do this with me, you know? Um, and she was like, I'll get in touch with him. I'll let him know that he needs to call you like as soon as he gets out of the meetings. And I happened to be in the grocery store when he called me back, and I ended up walking through the grocery store just doing circles, talking to him for an hour. I had ice cream in my cart that was like melting. I went and put it back and got a new one. And he was like, I just feel so called to do this. He was like,
Oh,
I can't say no to this. The fact that I have this carved out, he said, and plus there's been some really interesting like religious things happening to me lately. Um, my brother, again, raised same as me, kind of like half religious, half spiritual. He kind of went more the direction in our 20s of kind of not believing in a higher power. Just kind of feeling like, I don't know, I don't know what there is, but it's definitely not religion. And so he kind of went far off and didn't believe in anything for a while. Um, but he had an experience when my grandmother passed away, when we were in our 20s, where he noticed the number 59 in all of her stuff, like her phone number, her zip code, her license plate, he noticed that this number was in everything. And as we were cleaning out her house after she died, we found a picture of her holding him. And for some reason on the back, it had her age. And she was holding him when he was born, and it said that she was 59 when my brother was born.
whoa. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then a couple weeks after that, he was riding in a car as a passenger on a four-lane highway, and he saw the number 59 on the clock, and he felt called to he felt like uncomfortable. He scooted his seat back. And a couple minutes later, a tire came off of a car going the opposite direction on the four-lane highway and landed on the car exactly where he was. And as it was, it broke his nose, but he would have died.
Oh,
Not moved
oh
his.
my gosh.
So
Whoa.
he's had some pretty intense experiences, and I've always wondered, like, how could you not believe in a higher power after that happened to you? Like, how do you,
Seriously.
you know?
Wow.
But those things have helped him to like reconnect with a higher power. He doesn't fully understand what it is, but he knows there's something out there. He knows that our grandmother is there. And he said to me, I've been seeing a ton of 59s before you called me about this France trip. His mother in love, he's not married to his girlfriend, but her mother is very religious and has been kind of poking him and questioning him lately. Like on Easter, she was like, what do you believe? What do you believe? Um, and he has just always felt the way that I have, that there's more to this story. So he said, I don't know, what to believe about why we're going and Mary Magdalene and all this stuff. He's like, but I'm down for whatever. Like I'll drive you around. I'll scope out the sites, we'll see how it goes. Um, so he booked his flight that night. I mean, he jumped on it. And
That's amazing. Oh, so good.
he lived in Germany for 2 years. And so he's familiar with driving in Europe. He's driven in France before, and he was like, I'll handle this. Like, I've got this. I will drive you all around. So immediately that fear of having to drive was like, oh, my brother will take care of me. I can just be the passenger princess through.
Literally.
Literally, I was like, thank God. And because he speaks German, we also talked about how, there's like a stereotype out there that the French don't like Americans. And so we were a little nervous about that. And he's like, I'll just tell them, I'll see if they speak German. Like, we'll go that route first, before we go to English, And I was like, great, you can also do all the talking. This sounds perfect. So that was how it started. And so we lined up our flights and packed up and we hit the road. So that's all of the like
The logistics
the
getting there.
logistics. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, so far it's destined to be an incredible trip because everything is just like, just aligned so perfectly.
So perfectly aligned. So perfectly aligned.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
makes me so happy. Like, God, it's just so good. It's so good. Like when you just let go and surrender and just let everything unfold, it's like just watch the miracles unfold, right?
exactly. I mean, who besides a sibling are you more comfortable with, other than like your partner or your children? Like my brother is just like the best, it was the best possible scenario that I can think of. So,
That's amazing.
yeah, it was incredible. Um, and so let's see. So we arrived in Marseille. We both flew into Marseille. We got our rental car, and it was about an hour and a half drive to this little teeny tiny beach town called Saintes Maries de la Mer. So, this is where Mary Magdalene's story in France begins. So, it's said that after the crucifixion, she was put into a boat. And here's where there's like all these different theories. No one really knows exactly. Some people say that Mary Magdalene was from France originally, and that after the crucifixion, she was going to go back home. Some people say that the Romans put her in this boat and they didn't give her a sail or oars and were hoping that she would just drown and die at sea. But, miraculously, this boat ended up on the shores of France. And
And
there
who was she in the boat with, supposedly?
That's another thing that there's a lot of different theories on. Some people say Lazarus, some people say Jesus was in the boat with her, that he didn't actually die in the crucifixion. Some people say that it was a big group of Marys. So Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Mary Jacob, Mary Salome. And they also say that there was a woman or a girl, I'm not sure exactly her age, named Sarah Colley, who was supposedly a slave, or potentially a servant of some kind, who is black. And so there's all these like myths and lore. So we don't fully know exactly how. But whenever this boat, whoever was on it, arrived in France, France itself was not France as we know it. And so the name of this town, Saints Maries de la Mer, translates to Saint Mary's multiple of the sea. So they literally named this entire town after this boat of women named Mary who showed up,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So how can we deny that happened in some form, who knows who was on that boat, right? But like multiple Marys showed up on that shore.
Yeah. Wow.
So, we spent a little time that morning down on the beach getting our sun codes. I thought of you that morning because we were like, we need our circadian rhythms, for jet lag. Like we were like, get our third eyes like in this sun, like on this Mediterranean Ocean and in this sacred place. So we did that. We had a really funny experience where my brother ordered breakfast for us and um, how are you and how tall are you in French are very close. And so we determined later that my brother asked the server how tall he was. You're like, he didn't answer. How are you? We realized later, like, oh shit. He said, how tall are you? I'll have the onion tart. How tall are you?
That's cute though. He tried.
He tried. That became our inside joke. Like anytime there was like a language flub throughout the rest of the trip, we'd be like, well, how tall are you? Like, so
Oh,
we
that's
did that. And then there is a church there that's dedicated to the Marys. But what is odd about this? This is something I don't fully understand, and I don't know quite who to ask this question to. But Mary Magdalene is not included in the church that was built there to honor the Marys. It's Mary Jacob and Mary Salome who are honored in this church. And there's statues of both of them inside of a boat. And every year, it's actually at the end of May, I think it might be May 22nd. is their like Saints Day. And so the church priest will take this boat statue off of the wall and they will carry it out into the ocean and reenact the landing of this boat on the shore. And I don't know why Mary Magdalene isn't included in that. I can't figure that out.
Because
Um,
everybody else honors that she's a part of the Marys, right?
Yeah, and she's
Yeah.
everywhere else in France. So why not here? Why these two? I don't know. That part I'm not sure about. My guess is that Mary Magdalene actually left and went to other areas of France, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'm thinking that maybe Mary Salome and Mary Jacob are the ones that kind of stayed in this little beach town and kind of like did the teaching and the sharing about Jesus and his message. That would be my guess as to why she
That
wasn't.
makes sense. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Okay. We'll go.
We'll go with that. There's a little crypt down at the bottom, and that is where there's the statue of Sarah Colley, the servant girl. And when I showed up to the church, it was very early, it had just opened. There was a woman down there who very clearly in French was like berating the little man who takes care of the church. Like I couldn't understand anything, but I could feel the energy. She was like rearranging all the stuff and like fixing this all the offerings that are on the statue, and she was kind of like yelling at him and he was like fixing things too, and like she was kissing the statue, and I just was standing there very patiently like waiting to get my photo. So there are people who are deeply dedicated to Sarah Colley, who again there's more theories about. Some people think that Sarah may have been the child of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Other people think that she's actually the child of Mary Magdalene and John the Baptist, that Mary was with John the Baptist, Jesus's cousin, before she was with Jesus. So many theories. I mean,
Yeah.
was,
Because how old was she,
I
Sarah?
think she was a teenager of like, yeah, early teens maybe. Uh-huh. She almost looks kind of like a child in the statue. So,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Interesting.
very interesting. So, that church was really cool. But again, I was like, this is interesting, but I'm like not fully feeling the like Mary Magdalene vibes yet. You know, I feel that she was here, but this feels like kind of tiptoeing into it. Um, so we walked around that town, we really enjoyed it, and then we drove, let's see, we drove 4 hours. I need to like look at my notes. There was so much. I wrote down everything I did every single day because it was,
That's so smart.
yeah,
Because it is, and all the days start to like blend together, and you're like, wait, where did I just go? And what? Yeah,
they do.
it is very overwhelming. Yeah.
It is, and you see a lot. Hmm.
Did you fly into and out of the same airport? I'm just trying to get like if y'all did like a
Yes, we did.
full okay.
In and out of Marseille, and we had a layover in London. So we did. We essentially made a loop, is what we did.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, this was actually my birthday, this first day when we were.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Amazing. And will you share the part about how you were doing your solar returns astrology reading? Yeah, because I love that part because it actually really impacted me in a big decision I just made. So I love that part of it.
Yeah, yeah, I will share that. So choosing to be in another location on my birthday really like awakened something within me. So when you do like a birthday year ahead reading in astrology, it's based on your location, the place that you are at on your birthday, because that changes the sign that is on the horizon at the exact moment of your birth. So, you know, the degree that the sun was at the exact moment you were born is what your solar return chart is based on. And so I actually looked up the two different charts. There's one chart if I was in Charlotte, and that chart was very heavily focused on my first house and my second house. So these ideas around like who I am, how I see myself, my identity, my values, my self-worth. And if I was in France on my birthday, it's like the whole thing got turned. And so that energy was actually concentrated in the 11th house in that chart. I'm sorry, yeah, the 10th and 11th, which is the 10th is my career and my public identity and how people see me and the work that I'm doing in this world. And the 11th house is my communities, like your bigger social communities. So, where you are on your birthday can change the trajectory of the timelines that you have access to, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect
In my
sense.
mind, it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. And then I was like, what have I been doing my whole life? I should be researching where my best chart is in the world.
Exactly.
Going there.
I feel like this conversation needs to be a podcast all on its own because I'm like so fascinated with this now.
So fascinated. It blew my mind. I even told my brother about it that day, and he was like, I don't know. Yeah, he was like, I don't know
Wow.
about that. Uh, but at the end of the day, I think we also are where we're meant to, like, I was very much meant to be on this trip. I was meant to shift to that timeline, right? So,
Exactly.
anyway, I don't
I-
know. It's like, did I choose it? Was it destiny? I'm not sure.
All
Maybe.
of the above.
Oh, yeah,
Your soul allowed you to choose it because of destiny.
absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to share your story about what that?
Okay, yeah. This is about you, but I will because honestly, when you shared that in our group, I was like, I mean, it really solidifies something in me because I've been eyeing this trip to Greece this summer. That it's like a retreat. It's a spiritual pilgrimage all through Delphi and like through Athens, through all the goddess places in Greece, like not even going to the Isles, not I'm not even going to be like in the Greek Isles. When you think about Greece, you're like you're on the water. No, we're going up to the mountains. And I'm like, what am I doing going to Greece to the mountains? But there was, as soon as I saw this offering, I was like, I really want to go. But it was over the week of my birthday, July 7th through the 12th. My birthday's July 8th, and it's money, and I'll be away from my kids, and it's like my family, and like I'm such a mommy, and we do fun things over the summer with my kids and my family, like all this old bullshit story that I've been feeding myself and that I'm literally trying to get out of, and emerge from as this new version of myself where I prioritize myself and my soul and my happiness. So when you said that about the birth date, I mean, it was like a snap of a finger. It clicked for me. And I was like, that is exactly where I'm supposed to be for my birthday. Like, I knew it. And I messaged the girl and I was like, I need to hop on a call and let's solidify the deals. And I signed up that day because, I mean, it just something, it confirmed in me you sharing that. So I'm so glad that you shared that because you just kind of randomly mentioned it. But for me, it was like, it was life changing. So I really know that that's exactly where I'm supposed to be this year on my birthday. Like it was created for me
Yeah,
for my birthday for me to be there. Right. So like, I know it, like I know it, like I know it. So I am just so grateful that you shared that. And I hope that this conversation will plant a seed for anyone else listening for future endeavors on their birthday, because I can think of past birthdays where different places last year, oh my God, I was in Italy for my birthday,
oh my
you know,
gosh.
yeah. And like several years before that, I was in California and I remember sitting on the beach and just like having such a profound moment. Like I just had a very, very deep spiritual moment at the beach on my birthday. And so it just really does matter like where you are, and it's, it doesn't matter if it's a biggie because the fact that you were born is a biggie.
The
The
big
fact that you exist in this lifetime and you were born on this particular day is like is a big deal. So I love it, and I do think it's a big deal, and I'm really grateful again for you for sharing what you shared and for because it felt big to me as soon as you said it.
course. I love these like domino effects of like the things that we do that you never know how it could support someone else or you just don't ever know. I had shared that in Heather Swint's astrology WhatsApp group. So I
Yeah.
had just showed the two screenshots of my two different charts based on where I am on my birthday. And I was like, this blows my mind that like I have a new timeline available to me.
Well, exactly. And after you said that, of course, I went and looked at my chart
Yeah.
and, and it was very similar to what you just said. Like if I was home, it would be all about, because I know if I wasn't there, we would probably be at home in my home in Georgia
Mhm.
and have a little party or whatever.
Yeah.
But like everything was like about family and home. But then if I went to Greece, it was all going to be the same thing, like my 10th and 11th, all about my public image, my business, my spirituality, like everything was like there and expanded. And so I was like, yes, please. I'll
Yes,
take that.
please.
Love my family, but I know that that's what I'm like emerging out of is like the constraints of mommy and wife and living that life. So it's huge. It's huge for me. So, and it was huge for you.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see what trickles out from these choices that we're making. And
I
this,
know. I know.
it's amazing. Mm,
So
it's so
excited.
incredible. I know.
Okay, back to
Love
you.
it. So let's see. What did we do then? We drove like 4 hours to this little Airbnb. Now, this was one of the places that Lindsay had stayed, so I knew that this place was amazing. And it's owned by this couple who I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere. Let me tell you, like, we saw no gas stations for the longest time. Their home is literally like on the side of the Pyrenees Mountains, these beautiful rolling hills. They have like a homestead. They grow all their own fruits and vegetables. They have horses, they have dogs, they have cats running around. They have a peacock named Shiva. I mean, it is just the most incredible place. Um, and so the wife is really into spirituality. When I told her that I had written my own oracle deck, her like eyebrows like shot off her head. She was like so excited. We never really got to have a conversation about that because little did I know we were staying there over a national holiday in France when they celebrate the end of World War II. So, um, she also works at this restaurant and she was like, I'm not going to be around like hardly at all because I work at this restaurant and we have more hours because it's a holiday weekend. So I wish that I had gotten to connect with her. That was honestly my only regret of the whole trip was that we didn't get to spend as much time with these Airbnb owners as we wanted to, because my brother is really into gardening. He's really into growing his own fruits and vegetables. He really wanted to pick the husband's brain, and talk to him more about it. Um, but they were very, very sweet people. And so they welcomed us in and introduced us to all their animals. It was so, so cute. And then we went down to this little town and we got sucked into like the drama of the town, this little tiny town. We were having dinner, and I mean, this story is like so long. I could go into all of these details, but this cute little restaurant we went to was called Tuk Tuk, and it was supposed to be Thai cuisine, but everywhere in France they put the menu on a chalkboard like outside, and the chalkboard menu had no Thai cuisine on it at all. So I don't know if like they just didn't change the sign. I'm not sure. But we got embroiled in some of this local drama. Like there were some men sitting right next to us who this woman came over and cussed one of them out in French. We think that maybe like he cheated on her or something. There's like all
Well,
and they were smoking weed, and the owner like yelled at them for smoking weed. He like kicked them out. I mean, I'm telling you, it was wild.
and y'all are probably just sitting there like, okay, this
Oh, oh,
so what are we in the middle of here?
like this is a tiny town. There's no gas station here, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening in this little town. So it was funny. We got to kind of like experience some of the local like I don't know flavor. It was interesting. But also we had a really cute experience because the restaurant owner didn't speak any English. And his son is in school. He's like 12 and he's learning English. And so he sent him to be our waiter. So we had this sweet little boy who was, trying to speak English. And oh, it was so sweet. It was like a very, very sweet little moment. So I loved it. It was very, very cute. So that was my birthday. Um, so the next day, Friday, May 8th, this was the actual French holiday. So banks were not open, nothing was, I mean, restaurants were open and that sort of thing, but people were off of work. There was no one having to work that day. And so we went to this little town called Rennes-le-Château. Now, this is so interesting. And apparently this story is in the Da Vinci Code books and book and movie. I don't recall. I totally forgot. And so I'm going to have to rewatch the movie and the book to see about this legend. So the story goes in the 1800s, there was a priest named Saunier who was assigned to the town of Rennes-le-Château. Very poor, very, very small town, again, out in the middle of nowhere, the French countryside. Couple years into being the priest, he gets a very small stipend from the Vatican to renovate his church. And as he's doing this, he discovers some things. And there are legends around what he discovered. There are lots of guesses. Not everyone, no one knows for sure exactly what it was. Some of it we do know were documents, they were papers, and almost everyone believes that whatever he found is irrefutable evidence that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married and had a bloodline, like that there was proof of this. So, whatever he found, he immediately called his higher ups in Paris, sent messages to them. This is the 1800s. And they immediately told him to get to Paris, to bring what he had and to come up there. And the townsfolk report that after he got back, nothing was ever the same. He was a very rich man, very rich. And that was obvious in the way he renovated the church, in the home that he built for himself. He built a library dedicated to religious writings and teachings, an entire library. When he was renovating the church with all of this money, he put tons of symbolism and really, really fascinating, strange, unusual things into this church. So the entire church is coded with essentially trying to send the message that Jesus had this alternate life that is not in the Bible. So his way of like sticking it to the church was to put it in the symbolism of when he renovated it. So this whole town, I had like full body chills being in this town.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so deep.
So deep, right? Really, really wild. So, like, just to give you an example of one of the things that he coded into the church, Jewish law dictated when Jesus was crucified that you could not touch a dead body inside of Jerusalem city limits, that it had to be outside of Jerusalem city limits, and that Jesus's body was not touched after dark, that the sun set and they put him in his tomb and they left him there. So there's actually artwork in the church of people carrying Jesus at night under a full moon, which under Jewish law would have been illegal, right? And so he's kind of trying to say, like, maybe Jesus wasn't put in the tomb. Maybe he was taken out, like maybe some different things happen here. Maybe he actually wasn't crucified the way you think he was. Also, Saunier believed that Jesus was a twin. And I know.
Whoa.
And that his twin was actually who was crucified and killed, and that Jesus himself went on the boat to France with Mary Magdalene and was with their family.
Okay. Talk about conspiracy theory.
Major, major.
Whoa.
So the front of this church, the altar of the church, like where like the big altar of any church, he has two statues, one of Mother Mary holding an infant, and one of Joseph, Jesus's father, holding another infant. And so that's his way of saying, like, Jesus was a twin, y'all. They're each holding a baby.
Whoa.
Not a little mind-blowing?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I'm not so sure that I believe that Jesus is a twin. I feel like that's a little too convenient for the story.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I buy that, but I definitely don't think that Jesus was crucified in the way we think he was. So I think Sonya's, I think that's true, but I'm not sure. The twin things feels too convenient. Like, oh, one died, one didn't. I don't know. I don't know. But that's just my thoughts. So
Interesting.
isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah. So, so was the church amazing? Like, was it like, so
Yeah.
you were you able, like, did you know going into that church that there were like what to look for and kind of the story already leading into it, or how did that work out?
I did, yeah. I have not finished reading, but I started reading the book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and I cannot remember the author's name off the top of my head. But that book goes deep into all of this, explains all the whole story of Saunier, like all the details, all of the theories. So if this is like piquing your interest, that is a great book to read. And I actually own the illustrated version. And so it has photographs of the things that they're talking about. So I actually knew what to look for when I was in the church, which was nice because I didn't want to miss this stuff. I wanted to see it.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah.
So, so you were there on that Friday, right?
Yes.
And what, did y'all spend the whole day in that town, or?
It's a very small town. The church is pretty small. You can also tour Saulnier's home, which I did. Okay, here's the other interesting piece. So he had a housekeeper who he hired when he became a priest. So she was there before he got the money. And whether they had a romantic relationship or not, I'm not sure, but she was his companion and he told everything to her. So he actually asked her on January 12th of this whatever year it was, early 1900s, I think by this point, to buy him a casket and to prepare for his end of life. 5 days later, he died of a stroke. And when he died, she inherited everything. So he gave all of it to her. And there are some mysterious things about her life after that. Um, there was like whenever they switched from francs to, I don't think it was euros. I don't think they did that in the early 1900s, but they switched to like a new currency. And the government was demanding that everyone kind of show where their money came from. She refused and she burned her money rather than explaining where it came from.
Oh,
And then before she died, she told someone that she knew information from Saunier and that the information she knew would make whoever had this information very rich and very powerful. And she actually died of a stroke as well before she could share that information. So it died with her.
man.
I know, I know. So it's very interesting. But he definitely poured a lot of money into these incredible gardens dedicated to Mary Magdalene. There is Mary Magdalene symbolism in there. There is Isis symbolism in there. And if you've researched any Mary Magdalene stuff, you might know that it's believed that Mary Magdalene was trained in the ways of Isis and in the resurrection practices that Isis practice with Osiris, which I'm sure you know all about from being in Egypt, Fawn. And so Isis and Mary Magdalene are very connected because it's believed that Mary Magdalene actually resurrected Christ using the same methods that Isis did to resurrect Osiris. And so there was Isis all in this garden as well. Like the symbolism was wild. It's
That's so cool.
so cool.
Yeah, and I do feel like that's part of the awakening, right? Of us on a spiritual level. Like for me, I know Isis came to me first. She came to me and was like, study with me, like be with me. And then it was from there that I became obsessed with Mary Magdalene and Jesus and I went down that whole thing and I was like, whoa, didn't see all that coming. So it was, but it started with Isis, but ended with Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Like how that happened. Because I was like, goddess Isis. And then I'm like, now I'm like thinking about Jesus all the time. Like it was this whole thing I was so not expecting. But it did go Isis, Mary Magdalene, and then obviously Jesus, like because those two were,
Connected.
it's the masculine and feminine. So it's just so cool that whole awakening. And so, oh, I love it
I
that
love that. I
you're
know you would really
like
enjoy all
so
the ISIS
cool.
symbolism there for sure. That they just, oh, it was so cool. It's incredible. Um, so that took the morning.
Yeah.
Um,
That's like some deep stuff. That's like total conspiracy theory.
total
That's some like really like
really crazy shit, right? Like my brother was into that. He was like, dude, this is like really cool.
yeah,
Like
this is cool.
he was loving that. So we actually had lunch that afternoon at the restaurant that the Airbnb host worked at. So we got to see her and like eat her food at her restaurant. That was fun. So that took the morning. And then in the afternoon, we went back to the town where all the little townspeople drama happened that we witnessed, because there's some really cool stuff in that little town as well, more out in nature. So there's actually something called the Throne of Isis in this little town. It is a rock formation. Some people say it naturally is shaped like a throne. My brother, the skeptic, was like, dude, someone carved this. Like, it's too perfect. And I was like, well, who knows? I don't know. But there's like this stone. Yeah. And someone has carved an ankh into the seat. So it's very ISIS coded, and it's right next to this little spring called the Red Spring. And whatever minerals are in the ground or whatever, it makes the water look kind of like blood. So, the feminine principle of our menstruation like cycles, and just the flow of the red thread that everyone connects to Isis and Mary Magdalene. So these two things are literally right next to each other. The throne of Isis and the Red Spring are right next to one another. So we hiked to it. It's a very short hike, but it is very, very steep. Um, and people had left these beautiful offerings. And so we spent some time kind of being there. But we were also being like loud and silly. And then we looked up and realized there was someone having like a meditation moment, kind of, she was like hidden up in the hills. So we didn't want to totally ruin her spot. So we ended up giving her her space and kind of leaving that. But those were some cool spots. And then also in that same town, I'm gonna like pronounce this the wrong way, but it's called the Fountain de Amour. And this is like, it's a little riverbed with some little teeny tiny waterfalls that flow into one another, very, very mossy inside of the water. And I think because of whatever is in the moss and the rocks, the water is like a dark teal color. It is like no color of water I've ever seen. And apparently, Mary Magdalene would do baptisms in these little pools that collected in the flow of the water. Um, and there are Druid ruins there. So there's remnants of what looks like a house from the ancient Druids. There's a wall kind of up in the forest.
Gosh,
And
I bet it was so
incredible.
gorgeous.
So gorgeous. Oh, I
Because
cannot
that
stop.
existed, like that's real. Like you see things in pictures or in movies, that are created, but you're like, that is so real. Like that is like literally there.
Yes, absolutely. Like we took our shoes off, we got in the water, we put our feet in. It was very cold and slippery and wet. I didn't want to fully jump in with my whole body, but I put myself in the water. But the time that we showed up, and I think again, because it was a French holiday this day, it was busy. Like there was a French family that was like fully naked. Like I saw this woman, the Europeans, they just don't care. Like I saw this girl totally naked, her kids were totally naked. And then another tour group kind of came through. So I didn't feel like I got the like peaceful moment that I deserved with it. And so my brother and I were like, we'll come back here. Like we'll come back here another day. And we did, and I'll get to that. But I at least got to experience it and like dip my toes in and take some pictures and that kind of thing, and feel the energy. And then that night we went back to our Airbnb, and our host, the husband, is an incredible cook, and he made us this incredible meal, this like French meal with these beautiful cheeses and some vegetables I'd never had in my life, and chicken, and it was just so incredible. But he also made a dessert, and on the side of the dessert on each plate, he put a rose. And he didn't fully explain what the type of rose was, but he just said, "This is a very special French rose." And he said, "Make sure you smell it before you eat this dessert, like enjoy its scent and, take in like the luxury that is France." Um, and the second that I smelled that rose, I was like, this rose is my offering. Like I'm saving this for the right moment. And so I dried those petals out overnight and put it in a little baggie. I had brought bags like with me, for who knows what, but that rose was like really special. So I'll tell you when we get there, like what I ended up doing with it. So
That sounds and smells amazing.
yeah, it did not smell like a normal rose. I don't know how to explain it, but it was incredible. So
Which, in the Rose lineage, right? Like of
yeah,
Mary Magdalene. So it just is like extra, like,
I know. I mean, I had been thinking like I want to get some roses from the grocery store and like give them as an offering, but this rose literally appeared to me. It came to me on my dessert, you know? I was like, this is perfect. This is like abundance coming to me. You just like open to receive and it just shows up?
yeah.
So that day, my brother had noticed on the bookshelf in one of the bookshelves in our Airbnb this game called Carcassonne. Have you ever heard of it?
Uh-uh.
It's like it's a European game where you essentially like build castles and like earn points for all the things that you build. And my brother like geeked out. He was like, "Oh my God, I love this game. I used to play this game. I love it so much." And he looked it up, and Carcassonne was only an hour away from us. So this was where I was like, okay, I'm gonna give my brother this experience,
Yeah.
Like he was like, we have to go. It is the most preserved, the most well-preserved medieval castle in all of Europe. And it is massive and huge. And come to find out, there's a connection to Mary Magdalene as well. Like, even in these things that I thought was like my brother's thing, um, people say that Joan of Arc took the Holy Grail there and hid it there. So part of the whole, Mary Magdalene kind of symbolism. Um, so the next day, Saturday, this was May 9th, we went to Carcassonne. We stopped at the market that was happening, just like, on this Saturday morning, and we got pastry and coffees, and it was fun to just see the French like buying their fruits and vegetables, from this beautiful market outside, and um,
So romantic.
so romantic.
So beautiful.
Amazing. And we just explored this castle. Like I just let my brother geek out. Like this was his moment to like geek out over the architecture, over the way the archers would have like positioned their bows, and like I let him have his moment. We just toured this castle, but what's really cool is inside this castle is actually a current functioning city. So there's another church in there, there's stores, there's restaurants. There's like a museum about medieval life. So we just like had a really good time, like shopping and getting gelato and having lunch and that kind of thing. So this day was a little less like intensely Mary Magdalene, a little more focused on my brother and like what he wanted to do, but it was still really fun just to experience the history and the culture kind of France. So that was cool. Let's see. On Sunday, May 10th, we had to leave this Airbnb. So we got up and got ready, and we had to say goodbye to the peacock. We were so sad. We saw the peacock spread its feathers out, but neither of us had our phones at the time. So we didn't get a picture of it. And we were like, one last time, like, please, like, spread your little feathers. And he wouldn't do it. But it's okay. It was still cool. getting to be with him. But after we left the Airbnb, this was when we went back to the Fountain de Amour so that I could have like my quiet like meditation silent time. And when we got there, no one was there. So I got my beautiful moment to just like be in that energy and to be
Mm.
in that space. So I'm so glad that we went back to it and I got that time there because it just felt so special and so coded. Um,
Yeah, that sounds very, very powerful.
Very powerful. I got some water from there. I put it in a little glass vial. If you do a trip to France to do these sacred sites, I highly recommend bringing some glass vials. Like if you want to collect some water or some Mediterranean sand, just something to like bring home with you. I think is
Yeah, that's so smart.
yeah, that was my friend Lindsay's recommendation. I didn't think of that, but I'm so happy that I did that. So then we hit the road and we were going to be heading kind of back towards Marseille. But we were gonna hit up a few things along this 4 hour drive that we were going on. And so the first thing we pass is this mountain called Bugarak. And this mountain is called the Upside Down Mountain because, again, some more conspiracy theories and strange things. Scientists have found that the rock that's on the top of this mountain is older than the rocks that are underneath it. So it's like, how did that happen? You know,
Huh. Literally, how did that happen?
literally, how did that happen? And you remember in 2012 when the Mayan calendar was ending and everyone thought the world was going to be over? Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Huh?
People believed that there were aliens living inside of this Bugarak mountain that would save them. It like they would be like, "Come on into our mountain, like we'll save you from the end of times." And people like were rushing to this small town in France. The mayor of the town had to kick everyone out, like back in 2012, because all these people thought that the aliens were gonna hop out of this mountain and save them.
Well, where did that theory come from?
I have no idea. I have no idea. But people have believed that this mountain is like really interesting and has like a lot of energy to it. And I think they've just like maybe applied aliens to it. I think they've seen sightings of like strange things,
Yeah.
in the air above it. Um, but the clouds like form a halo around this mountain, and it is really strange. I mean, I saw it and took a picture of it, and apparently, if you hike on this mountain when the clouds are forming this halo, you can get hurt. Like there's just like a lot of energy. It's just a really kind of strange, little interesting area. So we just said hey to it and drove by. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't really interested in hopping out and doing all of that, but it's there. Um, and so we continued on, and I didn't even put this together right away, but again, this is just the way things happen. We may have done this on a different day if my brother hadn't been into Carcassonne and wanted to go there. We ended up going to a place called the Hermitage de Galamus. And this is the place that supposedly Mary Magdalene came to give birth to her baby that she had with Jesus. And I happened to be there on Mother's Day.
Aw, amazing.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
It didn't dawn on me until later in the day, but I was like, oh my God, I was in the place where she gave birth on Mother's Day. How significant and synchronous. And so this Hermitage is like, I don't even know how they built it. It is in these like gorges of the Pyrenees mountain that are just straight drops, these like straight vertical gorges down to a river. And somehow this Hermitage is like tucked into the side of this cliff. And you have to kind of like hike down these stone steps down through this little cave. And the church, the Hermitage, it's kind of like lodging, but also a church. The monks would have lived there and would have taken care of her when she gave birth, potentially nuns. But the church is built into this cave that goes like back. I mean, it looks very Yoni-esque as
I,
well.
I saw a picture of that. It totally looked like it. That
Yeah.
was as soon as I saw that picture, I was like, I didn't know that's what you were describing, but now that you said that, I was like, I saw that picture, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God,
It's
that's
amazing. There's a
yeah.
couple places like this. Yeah. And so that felt really significant to me. And we spent a lot of time just kind of sitting in there in meditation, taking it in. There's like, all these little like ledges because it's in a cave, and people have put like offerings like all throughout these walls. Like you could sit there and just look and see new things constantly as you go. And there were some candles like attached to the side of the cave wall, and I felt really called to light them. And I tried, and my brother like got all these pictures of me trying, but the wicks were just too wet. Like I couldn't do it. But I was like, damn, I really wanted to light some candles in here for her. Um, so I gave it a shot, but it just felt, yeah, just like so feminine and just the energy of being a mother, and mothering. I firmly believe that all women are mothers, whether you have children or not. That is something I feel so strongly, and I think something that Mary Magdalene's energy teaches us because we don't actually know if she was a mother or not. We're not sure. I mean, I think she was. I do believe that, but I also believe that as women, we hold the potentiality of all that could exist in the world. Like the future is literally within our bodies we are portals from one dimension to another. And so that was just the energy that I was meditating on and feeling when I was in that space that like we are all mothers, whether you have children or not, it doesn't matter. The mystery of it all is okay. So that was just a really powerful
I
experience.
I agree. I agree so much and resonate with that. There's so many times that I'm talking because I am a mother, I'll refer to, as women as, but it's like, but it's not me as a mother, it's like we're all mothers. Like we are all mothers because we are creators. We are constantly birthing and just, oh, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. We are all creators of something,
Yeah.
like it doesn't
Even
matter.
if we're constantly rebirthing ourselves, which if we're in this soul-filled spiritual journey, we are constantly rebirthing new versions of ourselves. So therefore you are mother.
That's right. Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly it. Oh, I just love it. I love that energy so much. So we spent quite a while there. We were there pretty much all morning. And then in the afternoon, this was another time when I was like, I let my brother have his moment. He wanted to go see some ruins of a castle. But again, there was always a connection to Mary Magdalene. Like I even still got something no matter what. Because this particular church that was I'm sorry, castle that was in ruins was a Cathar church. And the Cathars were a spiritual movement around the time of Christ. They were not based in Christ originally. They had their own beliefs. But when the message of Jesus and Mary Magdalene came to France, they became protectors of Mary Magdalene and of these truths. And they were actually um, the Catholic Church eventually went on what is known as kind of the first European genocide to kill all of them because they held these sacred truths. And so this castle was a Cathar castle originally.
Oh,
So that was cool because the church inside of it, inside of the castle, was named after Mary Magdalene, of course, which I didn't know until I got in there. So that was cool. And again, I think because it was a holiday weekend, there were people who were paragliding off of the side of these ruins down this mountain. And my brother is a paraglider. He's trained in it. And so he was
oh my
geeking
God.
out over these people paragliding off the edge of like ancient ruins. So cool.
Oh, that is super cool.
It was so cool to watch these people do this. It was like, holy crap, like how scary, but how amazing that they were doing this. So
Yeah, so
we were
fun.
we were like hiking through it and like seeing these people paraglide. They were like right there and then they'd be gone like off the edge of the cliff. It was so cool. Um, so
So
let's
it was a Cathar's castle with
mhm.
a church inside of it.
Yes. So all of
Okay.
the castles have churches within them. All of
Okay.
them do.
So was it like a Catholic church or was it like a Cathar's? church.
think it was a Catholic church originally that
Uh,
then, the Catholic Church kind of took
took
over.
over, right? Yeah, because they like murdered everybody. Because you know the truth. You must be killed.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Which is also like, this is something that kind of blew my mind too, is the fact that the Catholic Church, as much as they have tried to stamp out this story about Mary Magdalene, they have allowed these clues to be throughout this entire region. They have left churches that are dedicated to Mary Magdalene in place. They haven't covered it up. So I don't know why, but I don't know. That's just something interesting to think about to like move on.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's see. So that was, then we had to drive 4 hours to our next town called St. Baum. And there we stayed at an Airbnb that was attached to a family's house. The most gorgeous house. I mean, this family has this beautiful pool, like in the just in the French countryside. Their home was just so gorgeous. They had the two cutest little children, a dog named Felipe. I mean,
Perfect dog name, Felipe.
Felipe. So we settled in there, we met that family, and it was honestly, it was so fun staying in Airbnbs and getting to connect with some French people. Like that was also part of the experience that I really enjoyed was, not just being in hotels or something, but like to really see how people lived. Um, they were just so sweet. They were just very, a very kind family. Um, okay, so Monday, May 11th. Okay, this was our big day. This was like the culmination of the whole trip. This was our hiking day. And this was a day that I had called my brother about before we even left for the trip. And I was like, listen, I need you to pack a headlamp. I need you to pack hiking shoes. We might need some paracord. I had done some research on this hike that we were doing. And so we were prepared. We packed up all of our gear. We had gone to a French grocery store the night before to like pack ourselves like a lunch of some bread and cheese and fruit. Um, so there were two hikes that we were doing on this day. So it is said that after Mary Magdalene landed on the shore, she then went over to the mountains into the Pyrenees to do all of her teaching and her baptisms, to have her baby. And then eventually she made her way back into this area kind of closer to Marseille. So we had almost completed our circle at this point, to this town of St. Baume. And she came to St. Baume because the Romans at this point were looking for her and they wanted to kill her. So it was recommended, I'm not sure by who, someone recommended that she come over here to St. Baume to this forest. This forest that still exists today, is known by scientists as having some extremely rare plants. Like it is still studied to this day. It is so magical and so dense, and it has incredible cave systems in it. So the legend says that there were druids who lived in this forest and in these caves, and that they took Mary Magdalene in, and that they took care of her in her final years as she hid from the Romans and really lived a life of solitude and meditation and like deep devotion to God. And lots of people believe that even if Jesus survived the crucifixion, that he had died not long after they got to France anyway, and she was kind of on her own. And so it's said that she lived in these caves that are up there. The cave that she lived in was entrusted to the Dominican monks in the early 1200s, and they have cared for and protected it since then. So they are still there to this day, and you have to hike up to this cave. This path is very well maintained by the Catholic Church, by the Dominican monks. And so it's not an easy hike because it's pretty vertical. It's vertical, but there's a lot of like switchbacks, and they've put some stairs in at different points. So that was our first hike. And when we got up there to the church bells start ringing, and we're both like, "Oh, okay, ding, ding." And then this monk comes out, And he goes up to this statue, and the statue is of Mother Mary holding Jesus after the crucifixion, and Mary Magdalene is down at his feet. So it's of the statues of Jesus with his two Marys. And so the monk comes out and does this little silent prayer or whatever, and then he turns around and goes back in the church. And my brother and I are like peeking around, you know. We realize that there's a church service starting. And when we go into the cave, everything else was roped off. So we couldn't go check out anything even if we wanted to. We kind of had to just like sit through this church service in French. And I don't know if you've ever been, I know you have on, but just anyone listening, like if you've ever been in another country where they speak a language that you don't know, there's actually something very like, I don't know, it's very softening and comforting to my nervous system to listen to people speak in another language that I don't know. I can almost just kind of let it be like white noise or something. And so I just like let this service kind of like roll over me. I have no idea what was being said. I don't know anything, but I was just like letting myself be in this like meditative like place of just like I don't know, the energy of ritual and devotion. Um, but then I noticed that the priest was preparing to do communion, and to my left there was a French couple with this cute, pudgy baby. He was the cutest little thing. He was like smiling at me from across, you know, the way. And they were like passing him back and forth and like just trying to get through the service. And I just had this overwhelming feeling come over me that I needed to offer to hold their baby while they took communion. So I got my phone out, I got out Google Translate, and I was like, I'm a tourist. I'm not here for this service. I'm a mother of two. I would be happy to hold your baby, you know, while you take communion. And I went over like super nervously and I was like holding my phone out, like, and they read it. They looked back and forth at each other. They like thought for a minute. And then the husband was like, okay. So he like handed the baby over to me. And we just like looked at the stained glass windows and I had a Mary Magdalene necklace on with a medallion of her. And this baby like shoved it in his mouth and was chewing on it. You know how they do. And
Oh,
it was just so sweet. And it was again this like theme of mothering and how what that moment was for me was that we also mother for each other and the idea of like community and that I don't know these people, I don't speak their language, and yet there's something so universal and human and divine also about like supporting one another in whatever we're going through. Like if I could just let her take communion in peace, that
yeah.
was helping another mother, you know?
Oh, that's so beautiful, Dana.
It really was.
Oh, that's really, really special.
It felt so good to my nervous system to hold a baby. It's been so long since I've held a baby, and he was just the perfect, you know, he can't walk yet. Like he was 8 months old, the dad told me afterwards, but oh, he was just so sweet, you know, and so snuggly. Oh, it was beautiful. Um, and so they did thank me afterwards. The dad knew like a tiny bit of English. He enough to tell me that the baby was 8 months. And that was kind of it. He asked me my name, and just thanked me. And after that, the service was over, and the monk took all the ropes down. And I actually learned, I did not know this at all about Mary Magdalene. Apparently, when the Catholic Church decided to kind of revoke what they had said about her, I believe was it Pope Leo who did that? I can't remember. In the 1960s or something, they basically said she wasn't a prostitute. She was devoted to Jesus. She was a disciple. You know, they kind of like revoked all of that and they made her a saint. They made her a patron saint of babies who had passed before or shortly after they were born. So the lower level of this cave had this wall of plaques of people who had purchased plaques in honor of either miscarriages, stillborns, or babies who died shortly after birth. And I did not know that about her before I went. Um, so that was something that I learned, and there were people there who come to grieve and to honor their babies. So just so much like mothering energy of all kinds, right? Like you're a mother, whether your child survives or not, you know, like we are all mothers. Just it just kept coming up this theme of like we are mothers, like no matter what, no matter what your story is.
Mm.
So that was beautiful. There's also some statues of her, of course, in there, and people write letters to her and throw them kind of, back by her statue. And so that was really cool to see. Also, this was this was one of the places where you commented on one of my stories. I shared some of the stained glass art that was in this church, in this cave that has been turned into a church. And Mary Magdalene is often shown with a skull and with a book. And that is supposed to represent that she was the first person to see Jesus after the resurrection. And so there are lots of skulls in her imagery, even within the church, which I think is really, really fascinating. So it just shows that she was the anointed one. She also washed Jesus with oils in the Bible. She washed his feet with very, very rich, expensive oil. And so she is even kind of honored that way, even in the Catholic Church, as being kind of, witchy, as being a medicine woman and a healer in that way, which I think is really interesting that it even made it into the church.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was a very beautiful, because I you shared that, and then I zoomed in and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's such a witchy visual, that it looked a little like alternative, so I was like, I love it.
It really did, didn't it? I mean, it
Yeah.
like so interesting. Um, I just wish I could ask someone like how these images kind of made their way into the church, but I don't know who to ask. So maybe someday. Um, so that was my time in the church that the monks have dedicated to her. Um, and then we began a more treacherous hike to what is called the Cave of Eggs. This is a cave that is talked about in Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson. So if you want to hear her story about that cave, you can check it out in that book. It's kind of towards the end of the book. It is it's like a secret situation. Like it is not something that is like there's no signs. You kind of have to know what to look for. Um, Someone has marked the trail with green rectangles, and I knew that from researching it before I went. And so you kind of have to go past the church cave to the right, and as you do, eventually you will come to a cross, and next to the cross is some green stripes on rocks, and that's how you know that the trail is beginning. Um, and this one goes literally on the side of the mountain. There are some spots that are like only wide enough for your 1 foot, and you kind of have to hold on to the side of the mountain. It is not an easy hike. It is not something you do if you're not physically able to complete it. Um, and at one point, my brother and I lost track of the green markings. We were way off. We were way off the beaten track. I mean, we were like literally climbing vertically up and down, and we were like,
Yeah.
something's not right.
God. Did she really do this? Is this really the way to the eggs?
Literally, we were like, something doesn't feel right. We had to trust our intuition and backtrack back to the last green little rectangle that we saw. And then we realized the mistake that we had made. There was like a third path that we could have taken. And so we followed that. And then we came upon the Cave of Eggs, which I don't even know how to explain how incredible this is. It looks like a yoni. It's like layers of yoni, like all the way down. And this supposedly was also used by the Druids for fertility rituals. Like this is even older than Mary Magdalene, but it is said that Mary Magdalene would come there during some of her meditative time, like in those final years when she was hiding. And what's really incredible is that the cave entrance is actually blocked by this like natural stone wall. So if you were on the other side of it, you would never see it. Like you have to come up this path. It's like hidden, protected, so incredible. And so when we got there, we like needed a minute. Like that had been a hike. So we sat down, we chilled for a minute, we got ourselves ready. We had to put our headlamps on. And my friend Lindsay had hiked into this cave when she went in September. So she had given me some warning that it is slippery, it is steep. But I do believe that our experience was a little more slippery. I think it had rained more before we went than she had. I honestly do wish that we eventually didn't bring rope with us. We thought we would be fine. I do kind of wish that we had had rope. It was a very steep entrance to the cave, and with the rocks and the mud and just the dampness of the cave walls, like it was almost like going down ice. And so we had to like put our hands on either side of the cave, shove our feet into either side of the cave and inch down. Eventually we had to sit. Like we just had to like sit on the ground and kind of scoot into it. And in that moment I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get back up this thing. Like I'm a little, I can get down. I don't know if I can get back out. I was starting to get a little nervous. Um, and my brother was ahead of me, like leading the way. He has hiked a ton. He's hiked the edge of mountains in Switzerland, like off the edge of the Alps. So I trusted him to go ahead of me and to guide me. And as he came around the corner into the cave kind of curves a little bit off to his right. He saw a flickering light, and he says he kind of panicked for a moment, like, what, who, and what is in here? And then he shone his headlamp over, and there is a lower level of the cave, and someone had been there earlier in the day and had lit a candle for Mary Magdalene. And so it was already lit when we went in there. And he was like, I had a panic attack for a second. He's like, it's fine. It's just a lit candle. Everything's okay. So we kind of got to the flat part of the cave and we got our bearings. And to the right, like I said, is another like room. And it is a completely vertical, like almost a ladder situation of rocks where you have to like step down in this total vertical situation. And in front of you is kind of this natural little ledge that people have turned into an altar. So there were some old candles there that had already burned out. There was no wax left, and there were, petals and things. And having our headlamps on, when we looked up at the cave ceiling, it was like sparkly up there. It looked like gold. It looked like the night sky. It was so incredible. It was amazing just looking all around. And being with my brother, I think he noticed things that I wouldn't have noticed. There were like, soot marks on the walls of the caves in certain spots. And he was pointing out this is where they would have had a fire. This is where, ceremonies or rituals would have been practiced. And there were egg carvings kind of into the cave wall that probably ancient people had done, because you're inside of the womb, right? And so this like inspires the whole. I'm sure everyone has seen that meme where it's like your mother formed all of the eggs that she would ever have in her body in her grandmother's womb. Like we are each in our grandmothers as our mothers being conceived. And so I shared that with my brother. It's like we are the seeds right now in this. I mean, to be there with my brother, my sibling, like we shared a womb. It was so significant and powerful. It just overwhelmed me. Um, and so we decided my brother was going to climb down into that other little cavern area where the candle was lit, but I decided for several reasons that I was not going to. I thought I don't want to go down this vertically slippery situation in another country, potentially hurt myself. Like my brother would have to leave me there to go get help and hike all the way out. And also, I didn't want my brother to have the memory of like shoving my ass out of a cave if it went that way. So I said, "You go." Um, he climbed down there, and at that moment, I realized that he was meant to leave our rose offering in that space, that this was part of what he was meant to do. And so I handed him one of the roses that our Airbnb host had given us. And my brother said this beautiful prayer, acknowledging the pain that the matriarchs in our family and our lineage have experienced, and just asking that there would be healing and compassion and peace. And then he knelt down and laid the roses around the candle, the rose petals. And it was incredible. It was incredible for me to get to watch.
Oh, Dana. Ooh,
I know.
that's
It was really powerful.
big.
For a man to get to do that
Wow.
and just to
What a
witness.
gift. Yeah. Ah,
It was
it's just
amazing.
so amazing. Like just the beauty of you staying back so he could have that experience. Like it's just so beautiful.
It
Like
was,
you don't even realize what's happening until it's happening, and then
no,
like oh, of course upon reflection you're like, "Oh my gosh, like that's
that's what that was. Yeah.
yeah."
Yeah. Um, and then
Whew.
I know we had some more petals that we had saved, and so he came back up. I was like ready to help him, and he was able to do it. He thinks he actually twisted his ACL at that moment because it was like not an easy way out. He was okay, but it definitely kind of bothered him for the rest of the trip. But after he came back up, I took the rest of the rose petals and I said my own prayer and made my own offering at the other little altar that was, just kind of right there in the flat space of the cave. And so we just had our moment of gratitude and, prayer and silence. And then when we felt ready, we somehow made our way out of that cave. I don't know how we did it. We just
Well,
figured
thank goodness
out
it didn't go down. If he twisted his ACL, I mean that's that was a very wise, mature decision on your part. As much as I know you wanted to get down there,
we did.
I yeah, that was wow. That whole thing is so beautiful.
It was
Such
so
a
beautiful.
beautiful unfolding.
It was exactly the way that it needed to be. And I had to remind myself, like, I can still see into this cavern. I mean, it's, completely open. So I'm like, what is the difference between 5 feet, and this
Yeah.
he is meant to be in there and I'm not meant to hurt myself. So,
Yeah. Amen. Good for you.
yeah. So
Oh.
once we got out, we were like on an adrenaline high. I mean, we were both like, holy shit, we just like spelunked into this cave and had this incredible experience. Like, we were like riding high. Like, it was
But then you had to
wild.
like, climb back down.
We had to climb back down. We had to climb back down. But somehow the way back felt so much shorter. I don't know why. I guess maybe because we got lost too, so that like extended it, but it didn't feel as bad. It felt like a breeze like going down. I don't know. So that was pretty much like all day, and we were cooked after that. We were spent, our bodies were tired, emotionally we were tired. We got back to our Airbnb and we both got on our bathing suits and we took a dip in their beautiful French pool and we went out and got ourselves pizza. We ate like all the carbs for dinner and just like rested. We talked to our mom that night for like an hour on the phone and just like told her about the trip. So it was just really nice to get to process after that. That whole day was just all about that and the hiking. It was incredible. Um, and then our final day, it was so crazy how fast it goes. The final day, we woke up and checked out of that Airbnb. We drove to a church that had been built. Now, this is like the most ornate, immaculate church dedicated to Mary Magdalene that I saw the entire time. And this is in the town that is connected to that forest, and is near the caves. But it's a true church, like in the middle of a town square. And the legend goes that the man who built that church was one of the Roman soldiers who nailed Jesus to the cross, who was overcome with guilt and grief and followed them to France and took care of Mary Magdalene. And he was the one that connected her with the Druids to keep her safe, and that he had this church built in her honor. Who knows if that's true or not? I guess it doesn't really matter, but
Beautiful. I like that story.
I like that story too. I love it. Um, and this church was really incredible. This was like just ornate, incredible. I mean, the imagery in there, the artwork, I was stunned by it. It was like Mary was depicted several different times as being like up in the clouds, surrounded by children. And there were men like on the ground, like praying to her, and like she was like in this exalted position, kind of in the heavens and in the sky, and like men were praying to her. It was like so powerful feminine art in this church. Just depictions of her that I've never seen, and again, there were, I think, at least two or three pictures of her holding skulls and chalices, and this idea that she is the feminine womb space and that she is the resurrection energy. And so it was all pictured in this church, which was so cool. And there's a crypt in this church which supposedly has her skull in it. And I have a theory on that. Someone asked me in my stories, because I posted pictures of it, of her skull, if I like what the history was about it. And, going back to Rennes-le-Château and Saunier, they believe that Mary Magdalene's remains are mummified and hidden and buried somewhere in the Pyrenees Mountains in France, and that Saunier, along with all of his other imagery that he put in his church, that he also kind of created like a treasure map to finding her remains. And so there's been a lot of like treasure hunting over the years to find her remains, her skull, her body. And so I personally believe that the Catholic Church somehow got a hold of this skull, which has been tested by scientists. Like it has been proven that this skull is of a woman's of Middle Eastern descent from around the time of Jesus. I personally think they got close enough and they were like, we'll put this in our church and let you know, like, stop the treasure hunt, stop trying to find her. That's what I think it is. So I'm not convinced that it's her actual skull, but I still just love the honoring of her that this church does. And, the biggest thing that I feel like I realized in that moment, that was the last kind of place site dedicated to Mary Magdalene that we visited on the trip. After this, we just kind of hung out in Marseille and walked around the city and stuff like that. But my big realization is that there's about Mary Magdalene is that there are so many theories. There are so many ways that this could have gone. And I think it's personally fun to read about them and learn about them. But I think the mystery of it is the whole point. The idea of being open, the idea that the feminine principle is to trust and to have faith no matter what the truth of it is, right? And I think the mystery is the entire point. And so it's fine if you get lost in the theories and the stories because it's interesting, it's fascinating. But at the end of the day, the whole point is pointing you back to being open and receiving new information and changing your beliefs based on what you find out and discover, and being willing to just sit with the mystery of it all and not have the answers. That was my big takeaway
Oh,
at the end, which I think is so beautiful. And one other thing that I learned too is that um, the name Miriam in Aramaic, it was a name, but it was also a title. And it was a title given to women who were trained and who embodied the feminine mysteries. And so whether it was Mary Magdalene in any of these places or not, they are deeply encoded with women who have pilgrimaged there, women who have been in these spaces, who are embodying this feminine energy. And that is how this region has become as powerful as it is because it's so deeply encoded with the Marys. Like we are all a Mary because we are all this embodiment. We are all her. She is us. And that is just so deeply encoded into the land and into this space. And so that's how I ended my trip was that realization, and just enjoying my time being there, just feeling so loved. I felt so held. I felt so taken care of. I felt so trusting of just the way everything would unfold. And so, yeah, it was a trip that I can't fully, I'm trying to express it in words, and I hope I did it justice as much as I can in this human existence. But yeah, it's something that it's just felt, you
yeah.
know?
well, I want to give you like a standing ovation because wow, 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 wow. What a story, what a journey. I just feel like as this conversation's wrapping up, I'm just like, I feel so renewed in my own spirit. It's like I just feel like I was walking there. I feel the see, that's the beautiful thing about this work, like you went there and experienced it, and now you get to share it with us. And it's like I feel the energy of that land there through you. So that is how we do it. That's why these pilgrimages and these experiences and following through with those soul nudges are so important, because not everybody can go do these experiences. And I know I personally will make it there one day. I don't know when.
Mhm.
um I pray that it's with you. I feel certain that it will be. um but until that day, like I just feel so
Mm.
good to that. And you just shared so much. I mean, I just really, it was this conversation was exactly what I know I needed to hear this morning. And I needed to connect back to the mother and just to feel the depths of our truth, and that's really what we're all being asked to awaken to on such a deeper level. And we've gotten so far disconnected.
Mhm.
And it's like, I just don't think humanity can take it any longer if we don't come back home to ourselves in this way.
Mhm.
So I just feel it so deeply. And I'm just so grateful that you went there and that you were able to share this experience and this message of remembrance with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. What a testimony of divine orchestration and divine timing, right? Like your whole story and journey and going with your brother and the timing and absolutely every single little piece is such a testimony to divine orchestration.
It
So
is.
thank you for being a an example of that, of what it looks like when you really just can trust and have faith and get out of your own way and just let the divine do its thing. My goodness, can we all just get out of our own way and let the divine orchestrate our lives for us, because it's beyond anything that we could have imagined.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this space and for letting me do this, because I think it was really important for me to process it out loud as well. Like, this was just as much for you guys as it was for me to sit here and process this and to hear it and relive it again through words. And I'm so grateful that we were able to do this so quickly after the trip. I just got home 2 days ago, so it's so fresh, in my energy field. So just thank
Yeah.
you so much for allowing this to be this.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like we are the lucky ones. So thank you. I feel so honored. I know when you messaged, because I'm at the beach, I'm at my in laws' beach condo, and just went to Universal all day yesterday and played with my daughter, and we just had the most fun. And so when you sent that message of like, can we? I was like, can we? Oh yes! Like you just say when, and I'm ready. So I am, and I do feel like this conversation, like I said, I needed it today. So thank you. Thank you. And I know anyone that listens, whenever they listen, I know it will spark a remembrance in their own being. So it's very important. It's an awakening, right? Like we're all awakening to deeper levels of ourselves. It's just the way that it is. If we're on this path, we are going to eventually awaken, because this is the truth of who we are and where we came from and our lineage and the mother, the feminine. I mean, it is the way. And if you are on this path, it's you have to open to this. So what a beautiful just journey. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I received. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone to listen for listening. I know this was a long one, but I think it's worth it.
Worth it. Worth every, absolutely every second. So
Thank you.
Dana, I adore you. I'm so grateful to you. And I'm so proud of you for saying yes to this adventure and this trip in all the ways that it came forward for you.
Thank you.
Um, and I'm so excited for us to just continue the conversation. And if you would go into our Cosmic Healing Facebook group and share some of the pictures of some of the highlights, like maybe you can caption it and just be like, this was the day one, this was the Airbnb, this was the cave, this was,
Okay.
like you can just share some of the pictures so we can put the pictures with the conversation.
I would
With
love to do that.
Okay,
I will absolutely do that. That would be so fun.
that would be perfect. All right.
Yay.
Well, thank you again. And thank you to everyone for listening. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.